Hey everybody, I'm Dave Swartz and welcome to another Dose of Dave episode. Last week I was off unexpectedly. For whatever reason, I just wasn't into it. Sometimes, you just have those days where, it's just not happening. You're not feeling it. Nothing's really coming to mind or you're just not up for it. So, last week I decided I'm just going to take the week off, kind of see how, it goes, see how I feel. And honestly, at that time, I had no idea what was going to happen to me the week after. So this past week, um, it it seemed as though challenges were cropping up like weeds in my life of my garden of life, I should say. And it just seemed as though every time I turned around, there was something that was hitting me again. And I've with challenge, and I've had moments of this throughout the last year or so. I would say probably even a little longer now, where you have or I have a pretty high and everything's going great and everything feels wonderful, and then all of a sudden there's just sort of a lull and everything kind of falls apart, and or at least it feels like it's falling apart, and you know it spirals me down into a place where I get really down, really sad, really not entirely sure what I'm doing here, as far as my goals and the things that I've created for my future. And it's not a good place for anyone to be in. I can tell you that for sure. And I'm sure that many of us have found ourselves in that place from time to time. And for me, a lot of times, what I suffer from when I get into that place is a thing called imposter syndrome. So, if you're not familiar with the term imposter syndrome, loosely defined, essentially means that you doubt your own abilities, and you are you feel as though you are unworthy of the things that you have achieved. So I go through this quite often. I think as an artist, many artists and creatives go through imposter syndrome, especially when they have had some success, but just not the success that they're truly after. So people who are overachieving, people who truly have a high goal for themselves, tend to suffer from imposter syndrome a lot, unless you have developed ways to combat these feelings. For me, this past week, I have had challenges, both personal, professional, financial, all of it being something that was unexpected and something I never saw coming, and all of them happening at the same time. And it seemed as though there was just not a real clear indication as to when it was going to let up or when it was going to stop, or what I can do to combat it. Now, this is the moment where my inner guru is yelling at me, going like, Dave, like, you have all these videos that you've made. Why don't you just go back and watch your own advice, and maybe that'll help? And in those moments, in those places of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, it's hard to do those things. It's hard to push yourself to be better. It's hard to push yourself into a place where you even are driven or passionate about trying to feel better. It almost, at least for me, it almost feels like it's more comfortable to wear this coat or cloak of sadness, because you in a way want to experience it for some reason. I don't exactly know how to describe it, other than it's something that is very difficult to get out of, but also very comfortable in the same way. So in that way, you can spiral really quickly, and you can get into moments of depression, even prolonged depression if you allow it to happen. So for me, I've been kind of in a funk for the last almost a week now. It's probably been about, realistically, more like 5 days. But I say that only because I have a pretty good barometer about my mood, because I'm a silly bastard. So when I'm having a good day, I'm having a good day, because I'm just insane. Just bouncing all over the walls and making jokes all the time and singing and dancing and having a good time. But when I'm not, it's pretty obvious Dave's not in a good mood, because I'm pretty quiet. I don't talk very much. I don't really make much eye contact. I keep to myself pretty much. So I'm night and day in that regard. I think that for me, it is difficult to get myself out of that place. However, I've been learning ways to combat it. Obviously, we've talked about some of that on my previous episodes of this series. Some of the things that have really helped me, for sure, have just been visualization and focus, trying to, really kind of pull back and be the observer, rather than trying to, be torn apart by it, by your thoughts, by your sadness, by your feelings, your frustrations, your anger, things like that. When you get sucked into these things, you feel like you're sucked into it, because it feels as though there's this voice, or this heavy feeling that's bullying you, almost, in a way. Like it's saying, like, you're not good you're not as good as this person. You're never going to be as good as this person. You don't practice enough. You don't dedicate yourself enough. You don't, you could do more. All of these things that are constantly sort of gnawing at you in the back of your head. It all leads to this feeling of, being burdened, being taken under, literally like pulled under like a wave, or like a tide or current. And because, you're sucked into it, and you feel like you're being bombarded by it, you can't really pull back from what's going on and observe it for what it really is. Example being, like, you might have, like, for me, I say I have, like, I write a new comic, right? Put this new comic out there. I might have 9 out of 10 people who love it and give it glowing praise, but I might have one person that hates it, or I might have one person that just hates it enough, to badmouth it or to say something bad about it. And that in and of itself could potentially ruin my whole experience of it, because not everyone liked it. And that is ridiculous when you think about it. When you objectively pull back and you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, 90% of the people who read this book loved it and had glowing praise about it. But then you had one person, just one, who might have just not liked the way the story ended, right? Sure, that happens. But there's no reason for that one person's experience, that one person's perspective, to taint your own, to taint your experience of it having joy over the fact that 9 other people, 90% of this pool, surely did enjoy it, probably more so than you did creating it, because it's a completely new thing to them. It's something they never saw before. They never created it. They get to enjoy the surprise of it, whereas you've created it. So there's, one of the things about being a creator, an artist, a writer, a singer, a musician, whatever it may be, you are creating what you create. So you never truly get to experience the surprise of what it's like to see someone else observe your artwork or your expression for the first time. That's amazing. But you get to experience other people's expressions, right? So again, all of this is observing what's really going on in your head when you get into these moments of imposter syndrome. You know, you're self-deprecating, you're looking at other people's stuff and comparing it to your own. Remember, comparison is the greatest thief of joy. So when you get into those moments when you're looking at someone else's, you know, expression and comparing it to your own, or someone else's life, it doesn't have to be just creative expression, just what they go through, how they experience life. You know, if you want that, if that's something that you really aspire to and want to create for yourself in your own life, that's great. You shouldn't be jealous of them. And I say that because I've experienced that myself many times recently, you know, where I should be happy for other people, but it's very difficult for me because I'm not as happy about what I'm doing for myself. And that's a big imbalance problem that I need to address. But we all need to address it when it crops up. It's not something that we need to just be bombarded by and, you know, sucked into and, you know, completely overcome by this, you know, series of voices of negative thoughts of your own voice, right? Saying, you know, well, you're never going to be as good as that person, and you're never going to, you know, live up to what you set out for yourself. You know, like, that is not true because it hasn't happened yet. You have complete control over your future. You have control over the choices that you make and what you set your mind to and are determined to accomplish. You know, one of the things that for me recently that I've dived into is fine art, abstract art, because I do this stuff, you know, regularly now, like way more so than I ever thought I ever would. And when I first started, it was one day a week, and now it almost turns into like 3, 4 days a week if I'm really lucky, because I'm super passionate about it. But even now, I'm looking at other artists and I'm looking at other abstract painters, and I'm comparing myself to them, and I can see, the feelings welling up inside of me of comparison and jealousy and imposter syndrome and coming back and really thinking about it and observing it and telling myself, no, like, there's room for every artistic expression. There is room for every creative endeavor that is out there. The cosmos, the universe is infinite. I mean, it's hard to really wrap our human mind around that concept, truly, but it is infinite, and there is infinite abundance around. I mean, quite literally everything is energy, and everything around you is you. So to think that there is lack is just literally, in my mind, not possible, because all things are possible. So when you take a look at your situation and you get into these modes of imposter syndrome, the biggest and greatest tool that you have to combat it is being able to pull back and look at it objectively and just observe the situation and ask yourself critical questions. Is this legitimate? Like, am I being truthful about this situation to myself? Is this right? Is that a correct statement? The thought in my head, is that right? Is that actually true? Because oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes it's just a pontification of your self-doubt, of that voice inside of you that just doesn't want you to succeed. I mean, we all have it. And after you have a moment to sit and observe, then I think what you can do is you can actually take the details of it and figure out, how you can transmute them into a more positive expression, or at least a more positive way of thinking that can lead to more positive expression. Because I'm a huge kind of believer in just doing. It's hard for me to rest. So one of the things that spirit does a lot for me, consciousness does a lot for me, I feel like, is it forces me to rest. It gives me like last week, I wasn't able to do the show because there was something about how I was feeling in that moment. There was something about my mind, my soul, or whatever it was, my essence, that just could not do the show. And I had to rest. I had to just do it. And I have moments like that all the time where, I hit a wall where I'm working and I stop. And as soon as I stop, I can feel it in my body where I'm like, nope, I can't do this any longer. Like last night, I drew like an intense amount last night, yesterday all day. And I cooked dinner, and after dinner, I wanted to go back. My plan was to go back and continue because I wanted to finish this page, but I just couldn't. I was exhausted, and I honored that. I honored that feeling because I knew I needed to rest. And I thought to myself, it's okay. You can do it the next day. It's not a big deal. And I think we all need a little bit more of that, because I think if we push ourselves a little too much and too often, then we tend to crash and burn. Then we tend to, lash out in ways because we're not able, to take that rest, to take inventory, of our body and of our feelings and of our, mental health. Because part of it too is just turning off. Part of it is, having a moment to just say, I want to do this for myself. So I'm going to do this for myself. And that there's nothing freaking wrong with that. Absolutely. Absolutely not. Nothing wrong with that. Everybody should have whatever they want as an escapism to take a rest from whatever expression they engage in throughout their day. Whether it is your job or whether it is a hobby, honestly, because sometimes hobbies can take over quite a lot of your mind, quite a lot of your physical body. And you need rest from that. You need to just, for me, I meditate. For me, I meditate. For me, I, just sit and I have a smoke with my, fiance and talk about the universe, talk about our day, things like that. Those are ways that we can decompress in a healthy way, in a productive way. Not just I'm going to drink myself into oblivion or, do all kinds of things that are, bad for me. I want to be able to rest productively, even on days that I don't work, because I've shifted my weekend. So I don't have Saturday and Sunday anymore as my weekend. My weekend is Sunday and Monday. So my Sunday and Monday are actually not like traditional weekends. They're just days of service to myself and my family and my home. So, on Sundays, we typically do laundry and we typically clean the house. We wash the sheets, we wash the house, or clean the house. We cleanse the house spiritually. We go through with smoke wands and moon water and all kinds of stuff. And we, clear all the because we have crystals at different locations, around the property too. So we clear all that stuff. So we try to do that. Well, we don't do that every week, but we try to do that as much as we possibly can. And so, and on Sunday, we typically have like family meals and get-togethers and things like that. And then on Monday, we do errands. So we go shopping for the week. So we do themed weeks at our house as far as food goes. So all of our dinners are, put together into a theme. So we, have like, Mexican week, right? So we'll go to the Mexican market on Monday and we'll buy, all the ingredients we need for that whole week. Or if we need kitty stuff for the cats, we'll go to the cat store, the pet store. We'll go to a market, just to see what else we can buy that might be interesting for our, week. Or if there's anything else that we want to do that's outside the house, we'll try to do that on Monday. And then whatever we want to do on Monday is another service to ourselves. So like I typically use Monday nights as like a painting night for myself now. So again, anytime you can find those moments in your day or in your week to decompress and to be of service to yourself is also going to help you to combat imposter syndrome, because it's going to remind yourself that these things are important, that your whole being is important, and it'll help you to be much more observant of how you feel and who you are, and not just being driven by your thoughts and your desires. Those are good tools, but they're not good masters. So you have to continually, be checking in all the different facets of who you are, not just your mind all the time. Okay. We're approaching 20 minutes, so I'm probably going to wrap it up here pretty soon. But if anybody has, again, any questions or they want to comment about what I've been talking about, or if you have any other topics that you want me to discuss, maybe you're going through something yourself and you want me to talk about it and get my perspective on it, I'll work that into a future Dose of Dave episode. Okay. As always, I have a series of things going on. The first thing is Confederate Monsters still going on in IndieGoGo. So we're going to be probably doing that for another week or so. I wanted to keep it open until the end of the other crowdfunder that I've been working on with Terry Mayo for this comic we have together called Buddy, which is basically Milo and Otis meets The Exorcist. So it's like a cat and dog kind of story with horror and demons and possessed toys and all kinds of stuff. So super fun. That's also going on Kickstarter right now. I have 7 days left. And Terry's just crushing it. It's a really cool book, really great campaign, and you should go check that out. Kickstarter, I have Patreon as well. So if you guys want to get more behind the scenes, look into my artwork, my creations, I should say. I have my behind the scenes comic book pages where you get to see all of the layouts, the pencils, the inks, all of the behind the scenes stuff for each and every page of that series. As well as all of my upcoming abstract artwork that I have. So all the new stuff I show to the people over on my Patreon page. And if you want to get exclusive access to some of my gallery shows that I'm going to be doing here in the future, you can get exclusive access to free admission to those through my Patreon as well. The only other thing I'll say is I have a podcast where my fiance and I talk about the universe, a lot of the types of stuff that I talk about here on the show as well. But we also enjoy a nice smoke of Mary Jane while we're doing it. So you can check out Higher Consciousness wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Okay. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys have a great weekend. And if you want more Dose of Dave, be sure to subscribe below. And I will see you next Saturday at noon for more Dose of Dave.